I didn't know Suellyn was such a Hollywood starlet. Good night. Striking. It's weird for me to come from parish assignment to parish assignment. I've moved 4 different places as a young priest, and each time I've done so, there's this wall of faces that just kind of hits you as everybody is new. You're trying to know different people. You're trying to understand what a community is. And slowly, gratefully, after some time, a couple of weeks or so, it's not just this big wall of faces. Different faces begin to stick out. And then slowly, with more ginkgo biloba for memory, you're able to put names to those faces. And then after a time, it's not just names and faces, but it's relationships. Oftentimes when I've had funerals, I don't have the privilege of having known the deceased. And I'm glad to say that that's not the case with Suellyn. That she was one of those first faces that kind of came out of the gray cloud of all the different faces. It's like, oh, okay, like, hi, who's this little swashbuckler? Who's this unsinkable Molly Brown? Who is this wonderful person with a beautiful smile and a hoarse kind of laugh, and somebody who is one that really just wanted me to get to know her? And it was special, even if it was just in passing, to have little conversations before Mass, or just to be able to have little quips about different things that were going on here at the CSC, but to know that on some level there was this woman who represented something far greater than herself. And I think that's what's so beautiful about getting to know someone, is that you get to see the bigger picture. You get to see the bigger point of view. And for Suellyn, who was one individual who did many unique things in her life, and we'll talk about some of the uniqueness of who she is in a second, Suellyn was also somebody who I feel like in some way embodied this place. What's been so edifying for me as I've gotten to know the CSC is that this is a place of community and a place of service. And just talking with some of the community members here, volunteering and being a part of all of these things, some of the big tasks and even some of the menial, insignificant, or not noticed ones, Suellyn was all in. And she had found a home here where perhaps in places of her life and times and circumstances, it was hard for her to find an identity. So much so that she'd be willing to go across the ocean for a trip to Italy with Father Patrick and with some of our other community members. Maybe some ups and downs on that trip, as there is with any international travel. But just to recognize that this woman really desired to belong. And I think in all of our hearts, that's what we're looking for, is just a place to belong, a place to be able to find some greater identity. This is what God proposes to us in these readings picked out by Suellyn's family. This is what God proposes to us as we come to places of worship, just longing for some sort of connection with the beyond. God starts in the first reading with a reading which, of course, just in classic Suellyn, is usually used for weddings. And she's like, it's going to be at my funeral, check. Yeah. That we recognize Paul talking about love. He's saying love is patient, love is kind. It's not a resounding gong. It's not a clashing cymbal. It never fails. And just take love there and put Jesus' name there instead. Jesus in his love for us does all of these things. He's not braggadocious. He doesn't let everyone know how great he is. He just serves. And he just wants to be part of our lives. And as Suellyn was grappling and really just clawing to understand that gift that Jesus is, slowly, and I think victoriously, she was able to be one who, if you take love out of there, and not perfectly, but she tried to be one that is, Suellyn is patient, Suellyn is kind, Suellyn is not a resounding gong or a clashing cymbal. Suellyn never fails. Never fails at what? Just trying, showing up. Now, there were other times where she failed big time, yeah? And we're not going to go into those things because at my funeral, I do not want the laundry list of places where I've failed and just saying, and this, and he did that. Because we don't need to necessarily air all those grievances. But we do need to recognize that we don't have a saint on our hands either. So what do we do with that? I think that's something that she wrestled with too. In our final conversation, sad to say, as beautiful as it was, there was a part of Suellyn that thought that maybe God wouldn't love her if she didn't continue dialysis, if she didn't continue treatment. I just kind of called bull on that, you know. Those weren't the exact words I used. I had a little bit more pastoral sympathy. But I think sometimes if we allow expectations from the Lord to be some sort of lie that we have to live up to, I think we miss out on what real following Jesus looks like. I think it looks like that gospel, where Jesus says, do not let the children be prevented from coming to me. You start to hear his anger come up there because he's so passionate about us. And I think that's maybe a secret that Suellyn had that hopefully all of us will be able to understand with our lives, is that no matter our age, no matter our circumstances, no matter where we've been, Jesus calls us his children. Jesus cherishes us. Jesus delights in us. And I think even in the midst of our suffering, even in the midst of the rainy days and the hardship of losing someone, he sees us, and he just wants us to come close. Something that I've been wrestling with in my own life is that, okay, I'm not just an adult, I'm a child of God, and I don't want anything to prevent me from coming to Jesus. The wrestling has been, sometimes I'm the one preventing me from coming to Jesus. Sometimes it's me that is self-inflicting these things that are not actually allowing me to see God's mercy. Or if I see that I'm somehow disqualified from God's mercy. Let's call bull on that too today. Yeah, I think Suellyn would want us to recognize that. Because some of the hardships that she had in her life, some of which she was dealt bad hands, some of which were self-inflicted, was the wrestling past those things to see how much God claims her as his own. So that's, I think, a real message of hope for us as we turn toward the altar, the same altar that Suellyn found refuge in and solace in. And then as we go forth with beating hearts still, God's not done with us yet, yeah? That maybe we can start to live in that same spirit that Suellyn had found as the secret to her life, that serving God and being a part of a community and allowing the Lord to call us his precious child will be the thing that satisfies, will be the thing that brings glad rejoicing.